David's world was a grid of numbers, a landscape of spreadsheets under the harsh buzz of fluorescent lights. Day in, day out, he was an accountant, a master of balancing ledgers, but his own life was wildly out of balance. The stress was a constant hum, a knot in his shoulders that never quite loosened. His doctor, a kind woman with knowing eyes, didn't prescribe a pill. She prescribed a hobby. Something calm, David. Something that grows. He scoffed internally. A hobby? Who had time for that? But the doctor's words echoed in his mind. So, with a reluctance he could taste, he bought a few small pots, some soil, and a handful of herb seeds. Basil, mint, rosemary. He set up a tiny garden on his cramped city balcony, a space he'd previously only used to store a forgotten bicycle. His first attempts were clumsy. He watered too much, then not enough. He felt foolish, talking to these tiny green shoots. But a funny thing happened. Every morning before diving into the digital abyss of his work, he'd step out onto the balcony. He'd check the soil, trim a yellowing leaf, and watch the slow, almost imperceptible unfurling of new growth. He noticed the way the basil leaves reached for the sun, how the mint sent out determined runners, and how the woody stem of the rosemary stood strong. He wasn't just observing plants. He was learning a new language, the language of patience. He started to see parallels everywhere. The spreadsheets at work demanded instant results, precise calculations, and immediate corrections. But the garden? It demanded consistency. It didn't care about his deadlines or his anxieties. It just needed a little water, a little sun, and a little time. Every single day. Growth, he realized, wasn't a sudden event. It was a quiet, steady process. One afternoon, staring at a particularly complex financial report, the familiar tightness gripped his chest. Instead of pushing through, he did something new. He closed his laptop, walked out to his balcony, and simply breathed. He ran his fingers over the fragrant rosemary, inhaling its earthy scent. He wasn't escaping his work. He was tending to himself. He realized his life was just like his little garden. It couldn't thrive on stress and neglect. It needed nurturing. It needed consistent, gentle care. The small act of watering his plants became a metaphor for nourishing his own soul. Trimming the dead leaves was like letting go of anxieties that no longer served him. The growth in his herb garden wasn't just about producing something to cook with. It was about cultivating a space for peace within himself. David is still an accountant. The spreadsheets and fluorescent lights are still there. But now he carries a small piece of his garden with him. He understands that real, lasting growth, in plants and in people, doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly, quietly, and with the simple, powerful act of showing up, day after day. He learned that the most important balance sheet he'd ever manage was his own well-being. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you had liked this video and subscribed to the channel for more stories like this. See you in the next one.